And as far as that goes, I know Sam had proposed a different tool for the meetings. I forget what the name of it is, but maybe,
Jitsi. I thought about that, but that was just like, that's like a different thing. Everything uses the same link and the same doc and everything. Well, I guess you don't change the doc, but I don't know, just what everyone else uses. So I don't know. I figured it'd be fine. Someone from VMware would show up who has the powers, right? Most likely.
yeah, maybe that's the other thing, right? You got to get the right people in the right sub teams so that they could attend the meetings.
You hit the record button. Nice.
Just to hit the record button.
Cool. So there is a Google Doc if you want to sign in, where we take notes and other things. Welcome David and Daniel to the BAT subteam sync. Does anyone want to volunteer for scribing notes?
I can do it. Make myself useful a little bit.
Cool. Thanks, Javier. New faces. This is generally new faces to the subteam syncs, right?
Yep.
Do you, I guess, the subteam syncs just started last week, but maybe we could just do rounds of intros and kind of what you want to get out of the meeting and kind of come to this. I guess I can start. I'm Terrence. I work at Salesforce on the core team for CMB, and I work closely with the languages folks who I guess are the most similar to kind of the Paketo team at VMware and Google Buildpacks as well. And so just have a long history of writing Buildpacks and wanted to have a place for Buildpack authors to kind of express concerns and kind of address those issues as a specific group versus it kind of being shared across a bunch of different places within the project. So just really interested in hearing feedback and seeing how we can kind of best address that stuff.
Do you want a popcorn? Or...
Sure. Why don't you go ahead, Javier?
Oh man, I've
unmuted.
Okay. All right. So I'm Javier. I am a VMware employee right now, transitioning to work on KPAC actually. So I'll be working a little bit more on that side of things. That aligns with, I guess, my role as maintainer on the Cloud-Native Buildpacks project for the platform team. So in the past, I've been working very heavily on Pack, but I'm kind of transitioning away from that a little bit. Also work on Tecton, the Pack Orb for Circle CI and stuff like that. So anything that more or less runs lifecycle, I've touched to some degree. I am also a maintainer of the learning team, so help produce the docs and the website and stuff like that. The reason I'm in this particular meeting is really more to be a fly on the wall, but also get some insights from Buildpack authors, right, to see what more or less they might want from Pack, where it kind of provides a set of tooling that's not just for building, but also for creating a whole bunch of other things within the ecosystem. So yeah, I think that's it for me. A popcorn to David.
Hi, I'm David. I just joined the Buildpacks team with Dan this week, and we're mainly focused on the Java Buildpack. So I'm still finding my feet, but wanted to join just to get a feel for what we do in this meeting.
And are you with VMware? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I could tell by the background stripe. That was my I apologize.
Guess I'm last. So I'm Dan. I work on the Java Buildpacks at VMware. And it's David and I working on a small team. And so I basically joined because I've got a vested interest in libcnb since we use it in like 50 or so build packs. And I also have a lot of maybe crazy ideas about things I'd like to do with build packs and developing build packs. So I just thought it'd be a great place to come and share those and discuss them with other people.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for joining. Next kind of agenda item that we have status updates. The only thing I have is from last week, we talked about just cutting a new release of libcnb, which I did yesterday. I'm still trying to get all my bearings for all that stuff. So 1.22 came out, and kind of the only real big change in there is the I guess the service binding stuff that Sam did. So that's out. And yeah, so we should be hopefully just much more regular about cutting those things as kind of features and things make it in. On to RFCs.
I have a question on that.
Go ahead.
Do folks have a preference or feeling in terms of like how we should try to pace releases for libcnb that would be like feasible to maintain? Like I know for us, a new libcnb release creates a reasonable bit of work because we have, to integrate it into a whole bunch of build packs. So like, I'm just curious for others, like what's too often, what's not often enough, that type of thing. Maybe just something to think about too. We don't have to answer it right now, but
yeah, I mean that's a good point around just the cadence of it. I guess how often are you all upgrading libcnb as it comes out? Like, would you prefer that release not to be cut out and just wait for like a bigger thing?
I think it's historically has been something that we try to integrate whenever the releases come out. Like we have CI that picks up the change right away, and then we'll kind of merge it in as we can. But especially for things that are non-breaking that don't update the like the APIs and stuff. But it still is some work. So I guess it's just it depends a little bit in terms of like what's coming out. Like this release, it was a feature that I was kind of waiting for. So I'm anxious to get that integrated with things. But I think it just kind of depends.
Yeah, I guess the impression I got in the past was that libcnb releases just didn't get cut very often, regardless what was on kind of main, and kind of had to bug someone to cut it. So I am open to feedback. The Paketo Java stuff is probably one of the biggest customers of libcnb. Like we only use it on the Salesforce side on a like few build packs, so we definitely don't feel the same pain that you all do when this comes out.
Okay. Yeah, I wish Sam was here because I'd be curious. I think he's using it with some stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know he picked it instead of Packet and kind of the other stuff he looked at.
Yeah, I'd almost be curious about like some sort of like timed cadence, for releases that like quarterly or something like that. I almost think that would force us or help motivate us to complete some, outstanding issues or something too, because he's like, oh, there's a release coming up. If I want to get it in, now's the time or something. So.
I know in the past there hasn't been time releases because it's just been like as stuff has updated with API and whatnot. I know some of that's going to change going forward with the creation of this team. Are there things that you want to change on a quarterly cadence to kind of warrant a release every quarter that is not dependent on like the spec changing and whatnot?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I guess it could potentially be a quarter where we don't cut a release because there's nothing to release. But my real only concern with doing like a time-based release is if there is a big spec change, like I don't want to have to wait 2 months or something, based on the timing of when that releases and when we have to release, like that would be the only downside. So I don't know, maybe we're not quite there yet because the spec is still changing pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be my big hesitation for kind of wanting to commit to time stuff. Also, I mean, in my ideal world, we're also cutting out libcmd releases when like lifecycle also cuts a release of like, here's a new spec change. And ideally it's like, yep, now you can use it as a Buildpack author for Buildpack API stuff, right?
Yeah, you want that to be as quick as possible.
Yeah. But there's other stuff in the queue of things too that I know Sam wants to get done for libcmd that are independent of the spec.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Is there an action item here?
For cadence?
Yeah.
I don't think I'm proposing to change anything. I was more just curious what people thought. I mean, we could leave a like action item if for anyone who didn't join, if they want to voice their opinion on that or something, but
yeah, maybe the action item is let's just open up a GitHub issue and ask for like a discussion of like what cadence people actually want.
Okay, does somebody want to take that on?
yeah, I can start it or either way is fine.
Do it, Dan.
Sure.
All right.
I think that way at least like we can pull Salmon since he wasn't able to make this one. Maybe he is celebrating Independence Day over in the UK. Cool. All right, so standing RFCs. I guess I can share my screen. There's only some new stuff, I guess, from last time. Like I don't know if there's particular ones that David and Daniel you're interested in talking about. Since you're both here. But I kind of just picked all the ones that had Buildpack author as that's kind of what the link is. And I know we're not always the best in the working group meeting at tagging me, so I try to go in after the fact and make sure to add that audience link. But I guess remove shell logics probably one of the more, I think, immediate ones that are probably gonna get merged in soon. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at this.
I was looking at that yesterday, and I generally like what's there. I think it'll create a little bit of work, but I think it's good for what we're doing. I do think there's some opportunities in that change too for libcmd to perhaps offer some additional help to authors on things that have changed and doing them the new way.
You mean like just writing out the process, like
Um,
this, essentially?
So like around the like profile scripts and executable changes.
Well, I mean, the profile scripts just go away. So are you proposing
Right.
like a thing that helps people like convert their profile to exec.d?
Possibly, I think that was like mentioned in here as like a possibility. That could be something maybe libcnb helps with that transition. Or I think there was mention of something like maybe like a helper to make them run as under the exed instead of profile d type things. And I don't know. I am kind of winging it. I haven't thought out a lot of it yet, but it seemed like some potential.
Yeah, I guess in my mind, I think that sounds good, though I'm not sure in practice what that actually means for something like libcnb, because I don't think like exec.d is necessarily one-to-one to profile D, right? Like in profile D, you can do basically anything in Bash. In exec.d, you essentially have to output to that specific format. At least output at the end, right? Like make sure to do that so then it gets picked up by lifecycle. So I think most scripts probably would convert fairly fine, but I feel like it's a manual process as far as I understand of the issue versus a thing that we could automate within libcnb.
I wonder if there's something we can do like notification wise to authors or users that those types of changes are occurring. Like certainly with the dot profile going away, that impacts users, and so there could be some sort of like warning, like, hey, you might have had this and it's suddenly not going to work.
Right, and we could add that into the existing APIs where it's not going to break them potentially. Like we know this is a deprecation essentially, right?
Right.
This thing landed.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then you all use Basic Direct, right? Already for your Java stuff. So losing out on Bash is not a big deal.
I believe so. Yeah.
I think that's kind of the other big change is if people are, I mean, they're probably fine doing direct for a lot of these folks, but like they will need to basically migrate to kind of the new thing. And if they are like environment interpolation will be different.
Yeah. One of the things that wasn't mentioned in here that might be something people have to review too is what happens with like sigterm in your container. That behavior could be different if you're running as direct, because it's going to be, whatever your process is now pit 1.
Yeah, so it has to handle it directly.
Right. And so like if you're spawning sub processes and stuff and not propagating signals correctly, like you could have weird stuff going on. Things that don't clean up nicely.
Is that a thing you want to mention on this RFC? I feel like that's never come up actually in any of the discussions we've had on it. I don't think it would block it going through, but it's probably worth calling out.
Yeah, it might be worth adding like a note into there. I can follow up on that.
Yeah, I imagine that what that means in practice, if and when this goes through, is that it will be something on our team / the learning team to actually document those changes.
Yeah,
kind of best practices more than anything, right? It's like, well, I don't think that's big enough change to necessarily like block this, but it's just a thing now you have to be aware of when you are writing processes that are being launched, right?
Yeah, and I think the worst case you could still just sh-c or whatever and just wrap it yourself.
Right. I mean, you have to know to do that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the problem. Cool. Sounds good. I feel like this is also fairly interesting. Of just, I know we've gone back and forth a lot on kind of all the different caching, but I feel like Emily wrote this because of, maybe it's because of the Java Buildpacks, but just like a place that caches can be written to and shared, right?
Yeah, I've been working with her on this one. It largely came out of this like problem that we've gotten from a lot of Java users where like when the build packs run, they'll download, say a large JDK or something, and that might take some time depending on like your internet connection and where you're at. And if your first build doesn't work, then it's going to re-download everything again and again. And then you try to build a second app and it re-downloads everything again. And so we've been trying to like tackle this problem of like, I only want to download the JVM once and that's it. I think that's kind of where this is coming from and what this particular one is trying to solve. That makes sense.
I feel like when Daniel Thornton originally proposed the asset packaging thing, it was kind of meant to not completely solve that problem, but at least help mitigate like and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Paketo build packs also limit what JDKs are available. Like you don't allow the world list of like, if I want this old JDK that's not supported, like you don't let them use it, right? So
yeah,
I know there's a balance of like bloating the build pack or the build package of like too many JDKs because you don't want to force people to download like a 20 gig build pack file or whatever, right? But that hasn't kind of shipped, right? So it's not a thing you can tell users to use today, but does that get you far enough to solve that issue? Because I don't even know in this original proposal if they saved the cache on a failed build.
So the way that this proposal is structured,
I guess it just does a volume.
Yeah, it would be a volume and not a layer. And so it would be like whatever you write is stuck there. And you'd kind of be, as a build pack, you'd be basically responsible for managing that state. Emily and I did look through the one that Daniel Thornton proposed. I think that was like RFC 73. And on the surface, it kind of seemed to address some of the issues, but there were some challenges to it because and I'm trying to remember, Emily had a better handle on this than me, the way that it was making that stuff available. We believe that you would have to essentially like have a custom builder. And it just didn't seem like it provided a very like clean way to kind of do what we were doing. Like it got close, but it just seemed to like miss on a couple things.
Yeah, I don't think it solves all the stuff, but it's just a way to pre-package. Like you could pre-package essentially the JDK.
And we actually have that now already. Like the Paketo build packs have had offline mode for a while. It just it has its own challenges because you're basically caching a bunch of stuff into a layer. And when you like if you do pack build -b, it's pulling your build pack into the like dynamic builder that it creates, and that process is really slow. So if you pull in, say, like 500 megs of pre-cached assets, it'll sit there for a solid minute easy before it does your pack build. So I think that was I think Emily was thinking that would be similar with the way that RFC 73 was doing things as well. So it just like Yeah, it just kind of was a little awkward.
I mean, I think this ties very well with the topic I added. I don't know if we want to get into it, but
Sure. Happy to move. on to
like
that.
I guess maybe Daniel, if you could speak a little bit to asset packages, right? And what especially when we're talking about the offline capability, which is what this feature is really trying to provide. We have a lot of the work that Dan has done in a PR kind of to some extent almost ready to go, right? Some of the comments that you made are interesting, saying that essentially the feature already exists, but it's not optimal. I'm assuming that by using asset packages, it would be quote unquote more optimal. First of all, like, is that a true statement?
I'm trying to keep the term straight here. So asset packages would be the proposal that's already the RFC 73 that's already passed.
Yes.
So it would be like that would be okay, but it would just have some awkward points to it, like what I had mentioned about the slowness of importing those large layers. This particular one that Emily has proposed is it's I guess it's a simpler approach, but it kind of takes the opposite approach. Instead of like preloading stuff, it's just letting the build pack run and kind of accumulate things. So it's certainly not going to solve, like the offline case or something like that. It's really just targeted towards that specific case that I'd mentioned of like, download an asset once and only once.
Right. And in my mind, those are two very different features, right?
Yes.
One of them is essentially having a more robust caching mechanism across multiple builds, right? Or multiple unassociated applications, if I understand it correctly, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one is being able to reference almost like co-located information, right? So that's the asset packages.
Yeah, I think the other big advantage of asset packages from, I think, a lot of Steven's kind of input into that design was in a registry, since it is a layer on there from the build package, it will be the same layer across all the apps. Like you don't have to move that asset package into like another layer in that app, right? Like,
right. You don't have to like copy it or unzip,
Yeah.
or whatever. That means you still have to unzip it, but yeah.
I think when you package it in the build package or whatever, it's already unpacked in that directory, so you don't even have to like
okay.
unpack it.
So you could even avoid the zipping and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like, it's something meant to like be for pre-populating like a set of things that you kind of want there. Offline mode, obviously, I mean, it definitely came out of, I think, the Paketo team's use case, like on the other side of the fence, right?
Yeah.
Java folks. So I think for the most part, a lot of their assets are a lot smaller too. So like it is not as big a deal to package like a bunch of Node or Ruby runtimes, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't pay probably the same cost that you do if you're packaging, I guess, larger things.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of the stuff we have, like the JVMs are not that bad. They're like 40 or 50 megs. Yeah. But when you get into the native image stuff, the toolkit for that is like 500 megs, and it just like blows everything up because it's so huge.
So I guess now that we have some sort of understanding of why there's a need for both, right? Like, at least that's my understanding. There's a need for offline because you can't get offline with the other caching mechanism. My question really is more about the need for this, right? Because again, going back to the fact that the Paketo team already has this capability. Just I'll throw everything on the table. So the Paketo project already has these capabilities or whatever VMware. Then we have asset packages as a feature that is essentially ready to go out the door as soon as we can get it out. But then there's a kind of like a wrench being thrown in by a new RFC, where Emily brought up the idea that if the stacks or the concept of stacks were to be removed, right, then that would impact asset packages because it also leverages or uses some of the stack nomenclature. I want to, again, kind of like get a sense of, whether this feature should go out or shouldn't go out. I know I have my opinions, but I think I'd like to know if people are actually anticipating this feature to be available anytime soon. That's maybe the more straight question I have.
So for me, the asset packages, the work that Daniel Thornton was doing, we don't have a burning need for that because we have an existing solution that's maybe not optimal, but it's working. For our users, we haven't really received complaints of like, oh, it's XYZ or whatever doesn't work. So that would be something that even if it were implemented, it'd be like, we'll get to that at some point, on switching what we have now to the official, stuff. So it's not a big deal. I certainly don't want to speak for Emily, but in our conversation yesterday, I think I was kind of hoping that might be held off just because, like you said, there's questions with that potential RFC on removing stacks. There's questions on like, is it really the right way that we want to do offline too? I'd hate to put something out and then immediately like RFC it and change it, in 2 or 3 months. That's just not a good experience for people.
Yeah, I definitely have a different opinion than that, and I'll voice it just for the sake of voicing it. But
Sure.
The fact that this RFC was created like yesterday, right? That might remove stacks, and the original proposal for offline build packs being now months ago, I'm finding it very difficult to justify holding off on a feature that's, again, like ready to go out the door for a potential change that might come up in months from now, right? So that's kind of where it doesn't seem to align for me, where the way I would see it is we would release the feature that we have based on the original proposal. And yeah, if there's a new change, because to me, it sounds like there's always going to be new changes. So kind of delaying stuff indefinitely doesn't make a lot of sense. And yeah, that's kind of where my mindset is coming from, right? So that being said, if really nobody is looking forward to this change being available or this feature being available, then yeah, it doesn't make sense for us to release it at all, right? And so I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get as much data as I can there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. I think if someone wants it, yeah, I don't see any reason not to. I'm not sure who's waiting for it. Sorry, go ahead, Terrence.
Yeah, I guess I share Javier's similar sentiment. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with the remove stack proposal. I have some questions and stuff on it, but it is not a RFC to merge in lightly, even if it's the better RFC. Like, it is really burning the entire world of like how build packs are built, right? Like it changes builders, it changes obviously this asset package thing because the assets are tied to it. It changes the build pack registry. Like we list the stacks that build packs are compatible with. It changes build packs directly, right? Like you're talking about like literally torching like a foundational component. Mixins as well. Though I think maybe people use mixins not as much, but like you literally can't build. You can't do a build without stacks, right? Like stacks are a core concept, and we're talking about like throwing that out the window, which doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, but it is very much a like should we hold off on basically releasing anything that touches stacks? Like that's basically like everything, right? Like are we freezing the project now because this proposal came in? Like I don't know. Like I feel like it'd be potentially different for me if this proposal was like an FCP already and like we knew it was gonna happen. and I'm confident that it will probably go through, but I do feel like the RFC today just focuses on the change, but not the implications. Like how do we actually migrate and deal with this? Like, is it like what happens if I'm in a build pack like group building and one build pack uses this new stack mechanism that doesn't have stacks, and every other build pack relies on like stacks, right? Like what does that mean in practice? Like there's no concept of, is there a way to map stacks to this new world? So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be hard. Cool. So I mean, my takeaway from this is it doesn't seem like, at least to your knowledge, Daniel, there's anybody that's really waiting for it on VMware or Pacato side. I might poke around and see if there's any other sense of urgency or people that are waiting for it. And then if not, then it might be worth holding off. But I wouldn't put it as like a blanketing statement that just because this removal of stacks is coming up, that, to reiterate what Terrence said, like we wouldn't be holding off anything that touches stacks just because of the potential of something else removing stacks, right?
Yeah, no, that seems fair. I would definitely talk to Ryan Moran just to confirm like his team's not waiting for this. I'm pretty sure they have stuff doing offline already, but
yeah, I mean, it came out of, I think, the work from probably that team. And I think they just wanted a thing that's not like a homegrown
gotcha
kind of thing. And if it's built into Buildpacks directly, I think you get probably the biggest advantage is, I think, the layering thing that you can't do today, right? Like you can't create a layer that's shared across the registry. And I think that's the one thing that a homegrown solution cannot do that this would provide. So I don't think it's burning as in like they have. I mean, if you want to do it today, you have something in place. So it's not going to stop that. But I think moving over to it means that you get kind of this advantage. I know on the Salesforce side, we were looking forward to this feature, but it's not like a make or break for us, right? Like it's not, and we're not necessarily even trying to support the offline use case. It is very much for the shared asset kind of thing, right? And
Or the
potentially the builds. So it's not a like we need it, but it is a thing we have definitely talked about as that RFC came through from Daniel. So
do you think this PR that Emily has would suit some of the needs that you have for shared assets in the way that it's written?
I think we probably would just use both, right? It kind of depends on the download stuff. I mean, the one thing the volume doesn't do is create a layer in the registry, right? That's shared. So like you still run to the, like, if you didn't put JDKs in the kind of asset package, it means every Java app in Salesforce would recreate this JDK layer, regardless if we like put it in that volume, right? Because the volumes, I believe, is not for launch, right? Like just for build, from what I recall from the RFC, right? Like it is a thing that allows you to not have to basically do some work that is expensive, whether that's network or something else, I imagine as well. And so that's just going to be shared between builds, but like, like if you're talking about like a Jerry or something that has to be built at launch, like that's just a thing that is not a problem it's trying to solve, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, you don't have that shared layer. That probably adds a significant size to the registry. Then, if you've got 10,000 Java apps and 10,000 Jerry layers that are exactly the same.
Yeah,
but
which I imagine is a problem you all have too, right? Like a bunch of customers that are using Java or Node or whatever. And
yeah, I think it's split out at a cross customer boundaries. And so it's maybe not as apparent as like trying to run a large SaaS service would be.
Yeah, I know. I know that's a thing Ben Hale complained about a lot. It was just like, and we have all these customers. I think it was like definitely with like in slugs. It's just like, and we have like literally the JDK being Jerry being duplicated everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they solve somewhat different use cases. Xalo cache thing's interesting. There was talk about that with it being shared across different builds too, like between apps, like, and I know that was, I feel like somewhat controversial because of security and other things. Like, I don't know how reasonable it is even for like a Node app to share even like potentially like npm downloads or something.
Yeah, that is another problem that we have, but I think we were just looking to not address that particular issue with this PR because it's different. Like you said, you really want to scope that stuff to the application and not multiple applications. Like for Java, it's not as big a deal, but I think what we see people wanting to do more is like when they're using Pack, they want to be able to say, hey, I have my Maven downloads folder already. Just jam that into the container and use it so Maven doesn't download the world again.
Right.
And that we can do through different ways.
Right. I mean, you could do that with just like a build cache, right? A build layer.
I think what we're going to suggest people do is just a volume mount. So just to volume mount their, tilde M2 folder into
like the Pack feature,
right, for Pack. Yeah. And then we'll probably add some stuff into the Buildpacks that like detects when that happens and, adjust things accordingly, symlinks and stuff. But
yeah. I feel like my other kind of just concern is maybe a strong wording, is just like, as a Buildpack author, like having to understand all the differences between how to do all these things. Like I feel like historically everything, because of the layering and stuff, has like very similar properties of like, okay, if a build fails, I don't have to deal with it. And at least the writable cache is like, well, this is just a volume and like you're responsible for cleaning up. Like if this build fails because of something that you put in there, like that's on you to like figure out or deal with it. Which is a very different like kind of properties from like, I guess like the normal like just layer builds of what people are thinking about caching today. And then there was also like Sam's RC that kind of, I guess, got postponed. But then there was like his like global writable layer cache thing for builds only. I think to Emily's point, right, it's like there's like a lot of different things, primitives and stuff we're introducing. And do we need to introduce like all this stuff? Is there a better way to kind of pull all these things together?
Yeah. And I certainly don't want to speak for her, but I think she has some good ideas for that, on how to kind of unify things a little bit more.
It seems like you're onboarding someone new. How on your team that I may not be super familiar with Buildpacks, or at least Cloud Native Buildpacks. How has that process been of onboarding a net new person?
Yeah, so David started yesterday. So he's very new. I know he's familiar with Buildpacks because he was at VMware previously, and so he worked with Cloud Foundry a lot. So he's familiar with like the V2 Buildpacks. So I think he's learning kind of doing like a diff style learning of like, okay, well, I knew it worked this way, here's how things are different in V3. It'll be interesting to see how his like, ramp up period goes and how quickly he can get stuff going. Kind of his first project that we gave him was to put together a kind of simple build pack. So he'll get to play around with libcnb and some of our other tooling. And so we'll see how that goes.
Cool. Yeah, it's been interesting. Like I've had similar, I guess, struggles on the kind of Heroku side as well, of people being very familiar with at least the Heroku v2 stuff, and then finding out CMB is a lot more complicated.
Yeah, it is. I think he'll pick up on it. It's just a question of like some of the trickier concepts, like, like the layer flags and and stuff like that. They can trip you up for a while. So, but hopefully we can kind of help him through that and do a little bit of training, and then I think maybe 30 or 60 days after, we'll sit down and kind of do a retrospective and see what he thinks and what we can improve. I think could be good feedback just for build tools in general.
Yeah, definitely be interested in that. So, do you talk a lot with the kind of other Paketo folks who work on the other build packs who aren't using libcmb?
Sometimes. I actually, prior to joining with the Java side, I had written some build packs over with that crew too. So I do talk to them occasionally. I'm not sure. I feel like it would be nice to have someone from that group on this call too.
Yeah, well,
know.
Frankie was here last week.
Oh, okay.
And she had obviously she can't speak for everyone there, but she had insightful things to say there. One of the things that I was trying to push towards was trying to figure out where libcmb falls short, not to like migrate all their build packs to libcmb, but more of, can we migrate Packet to sit on top of libcmb was the thing that I would like to see happen. And I don't know exactly what those changes are, but I would love to see libcmb be the, at bare minimum, like the low level binding with, and if it has opinions on stuff, maybe it's just like a higher level abstraction that can sit kind of separately on top, but at least it's providing all the API primitive stuff. And so I know one of the complaints that Sam had about Packet was that it doesn't provide all the API stuff that is current, right? They basically just build out what they want to build out for their use case and needs, which is not everything. And it would remove the need for them to kind of have to always keep up with the API, but then they can still have their opinions on how that side of Paketo does Buildpacks. And then there's like more of like just one kind of ecosystem around it that gets to kind of feed everything kind of back upstream instead of being kind of split.
Yeah, I'd be all for that. I think it's confusing when you come in as a new potential author and you're like, 2 libraries, same language.
Yeah.
Which one do I use? And then you have to spend time like Sam did, like digging through and figuring out which one you like better. And yeah, I think if we could unify that a little bit, it would be better for onboarding.
Yeah. So I know that was like kind of one of my asks there. I don't know kind of what the action items are, how to make that happen, because I know they're busy with kind of the set of stuff that they have to do too. So
yeah, I'm not sure what would be a way to approach that. Doing some kind of comparison. I don't know what notes Sam might have made when he kind of went through and did some of that stuff. I know he had opened the one issue on libcmb about it, a difference that he had highlighted, but yeah, hopefully that's something that we can talk about more, maybe in upcoming meetings.
Yep. I guess the probably last thing in the last 3 minutes, we were talking about kind of the scheduling. Do you have a preference on meeting every week, every other week? I think Javier was proposing on just moving all the sub-team syncs kind of every other week. So just to kind of cut down on the number of meetings for people who are attending a lot of this stuff. And some of the attendance, I guess, has also dropped off on some of the other sub-team sync meetings.
I'd be okay with that. I know this one was scheduled for an hour too, so an hour every other week is probably better in my book than a half hour every week. We can actually have some more in-depth discussions and stuff.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds good. We might try to kick that off next week.
So yeah, so because we had this meeting this week, would you be all right for skipping the next one and leaving it for the learning team?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Sounds good. Oh, one thing David mentioned to me already that might be interesting feedback was there isn't really a like how to write a build pack with libcnb article that I could find. Like there's articles in the docs on how to write a build pack, but they're like bash focused. That seems like something maybe like we could pair up with the learning team and like kind of put some sort of docs together for.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. I don't know how much, I guess, assistance you would need from the learning team. Just for some context, the way that our docs website operates is the learning team is more or less just a facilitator for like the area of documentation, styling, that sort of stuff. But a lot of the documentation that's pertinent to individual sub teams, it's more or less on them and their responsibility to produce that documentation. So I would
Okay.
say for this, the libcnb stuff, I think by all means, just creating a page would be awesome.
Do you know where? I guess like we could probably just draft something like in a Google Doc or whatever or somewhere, and then you can tell us where to put it.
I was going to say, I think the question really from the learning team would be like, where does it fit? Is something like that documentation? Is something like that a blog post? Is it, like what format, I guess, would make sense to structure it?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I will say that we do have a tool section where maybe it's worth putting, libcnb, even just mentioning it there on the tools. I know we wanted to split that up into different type of tools, right? Some of them are like platforms, other things are utilities, other things are libraries. In this case, this would be a library. It could reference there and then have its own set of, information, that sort of stuff. I myself wouldn't personally be opposed to the Buildpack Authors Guide leveraging libcnb a lot more. But I do know that might be a discussion to be had with somebody like Joe, right? Where a lot of more bash specific stuff has historically been located there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could even see it being like, one of those fancy pages where it's like, you click the tab and it changes the example to a different language or something.
Yeah.
I definitely do not want to propose any of the stuff we do replaces any of the bash things, because I don't think having to know Go should be a requirement for how we tell people to write build packs. But I do agree that if we have a library that's officially part of the project, it would be nice to have documentation on how to actually get started and use it.
Okay.
The only other thing I will add that might help here is we are thinking, or let me back up. So Sam created some Katacoda tutorials for creating a build pack, right? So that create a build pack guide that exists. He took it and created a Katacoda workbook out of it. We are hoping to be able to embed Katacoda workbooks into the doc site so that we don't have to manage two of them. So I think that would impose some sort of limitation on whether we could do this whole change the code or change the language on the tutorial. We might just end up with two different workbooks, right? One for Go, libcnb, and one for bash, and figuring out how that works out. But I do like the idea of as a build pack author, kind of select your language and then start working through items for that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, the kata coda stuff's really cool. Being able to do it as you're reading is wonderful.
Yeah. Is that a thing that you and your team have space to help with, Daniel?
Probably not in the short term, but I think like I definitely have kind of something in my backlog to, I guess, discuss more about, how to write build packs. I think we do want to promote that and promote the tools and stuff. So I couldn't commit to anything in the next couple weeks, but maybe a little further down the road, like when David gets up to speed, we can take some of his feedback and start authoring some docs on that.
Cool. Sounds good. Is that like a use case for you all, like your customers writing build packs that they use that?
I think it happens. We do find customers that want custom build packs, whether they write them or whether they have, someone from VMware write them for them, on their behalf. It's, 601, but, having a clear path and clear set of tools and stuff that pays dividends down the road in terms of supporting them and keeping them up to date and stuff too. So.
Cool. Awesome. I know we're 4 minutes over time, so yeah, thanks a lot for coming.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It's good chatting. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.